Welcome back to another episode of the Two Pelicans Podcast. So you would have just missed that.
Loving
G'day, you Pelicans.
Here he was, you were sort of hung up on his
go and have a good time with her a bit later on.
Pelicans landing in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Two Pelicans Podcast. I'm Joey.
And I'm Mick, and we are the Two Pelicans.
This is a fishing podcast making fishing great. Once again, getting the average weekend angler through his work week with a smile in his dial, ready to catch some crackers on the weekend. And we are back, Mick. We are back with part two.
That's it. And always big shout out to our listeners that keep listening, following, supporting us. The feedback's been awesome, and look, just keep it on coming. We're loving it.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. The Patreon, the Spotify, everything's going really well. And look, you just might get those little bit of a hidden gems over there on the old Patreon.
Old Patreon.
We are diving straight back where we left off from the very last episode into everything lure making, Mick.
Yeah, so I think what I'd like to do, we're just going to jump straight into this, and for a lot of people, I'm sort of pretty excited about this because I think tonight we're going to have a masterclass from Jojo around about making lures and everything in and around that. Why he does it, the stuff that he's built, the stuff that he's been taking up to Lure Expos, the stuff that you buy from your local tackle shop. So we're going to dive into it and ask Joey a few questions. Look, I've got a few out there. But what I might do is I'll put up I think for this one, we'll put up a Facebook poll.
Great idea.
Yeah, to see would people consider having a go at making timber lures, because I, for one, are about as useful as an ashtray on a motorcycle when it comes to this stuff. But yourself, you've been gadgeting, doing all this sort of stuff for a long time now. So look, there's probably a lot of people out there with your skill sets that they've probably just been sitting on the sideline for years. And look, for some people, it's probably a release.
Yeah, it's definitely a time to relax, you know, like anything, mate. You don't do it unless you enjoy it. And yes, like we've said over the weekend at the Lure Expo, monetary value does come into it at a point, because if you're not making money, there's no point in doing something. Yeah. But I fucking love it. I absolutely love it, and that's why I do it.
Look, and it's probably a good segue to start throwing out a few of these questions. Look, I guess what I've got a rough idea, but there's a lot of people out there that don't. How long have you been actually making lures? Now, I'm going to break it into a two-piece question. Making lures under the Jollop name and playing beforehand.
That's a very, very good question. And there's a lot of lure makers that say they've been making for 60 years, but they count the lure they made when they were 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
So, look, I made the first lures when I was probably about 9 or 10, you know, with the old scroll saw, and they were shit. They never swam, they never did shit, they were terrible. But
as a 10-year-old, were you a little bit deflated about
I was like, this is fucking terrible. Like, I was cutting up like bits of tins and like plastic bottles for bibs, and it just didn't work. I had no idea. I didn't understand. And you got to remember, this was way prior to YouTube.
Yes.
Like this, we had none of that stuff. So fast forward, look, basically 9-10 years now. It's hard, sort of like I started to tinker, but the name Jolt was really like that 8 sort of 9 years now. So we're coming up to 10 years, and realistically probably like 6 years of that have been pretty hard, like pretty hardcore as far as stock and stores, pretty constantly.
Yeah. And I guess like what made you sort of jump all into it? You know, you were doing things beforehand. What was the defining moment for you to sort of really kick off Jollop as a business? So
I guess we'll just take it back a little bit, like why I even sort of started doing it in the first place, like the lures, like. So I work for Paul Nella, which is we've spoken about, and which we are going to get on this podcast at a later date, which will be fantastic.
You're wording him up.
I've worded him up, and he's going to do it. He's going to do it. He said, as long as there's beer with fruit in it, I'll be there. So you can't go wrong there. But fruity beers, who doesn't love a mango in your beer? As I'm sitting here drinking a sugarcane champagne. But anyway, I started working for Paul just at the sort of the era where he was getting back into lures, and I'd loiter around his house all the time, around his shed, and I had nothing better to do. And I sort of like, this is pretty neat, you know, and seeing the passion he had for it, getting back into it. And then, so, you know, like everything, life changes. I like drifted away, went to the coast, and sort of had a bit of a tinker up there, you know, but I never had anywhere to set up and do it. Like, you need space to do this stuff, to have a crack. And then met my lovely wife and moved back here and bought a house, and I was like, oh fuck, this thing's got a huge shed. Actually, funny story.
Yeah.
We come to look at the property, and I just V-line straight around the back.
You just wanted to see what the tinker metal looked like.
And I come straight up to the house and I said, we'll take it. And Prue's like, what? What are you doing? I was like, we'll take it. I don't even look inside, we'll take it. So that sort of is where it started. And then, so basically a big mentor of mine, of course, has been Paul. And basically just jumped in. But the reason I dived into doing it like full on was I was doing a heap of bank fishing down the river here, like diving block area, you know that pretty well. And I couldn't quite reach the other side of the river with what I was throwing. I was like, fuck this, I'll just make my own.
Yeah, righto.
So carved up a few fizzes and started slamming some bass on them. I was like, fuck, this isn't bad.
Yeah, righto.
I think I remember my first batch of lures was 30 lures, and it took me months and months and months to make. But that's really how it all kicked off, mate, between Paul and some of the other legends out there sort of getting a bit of inspiration and then and just saying you'll have a crack. But I probably did it for 2 years as a hobby.
Yeah. Now, I guess the thing is, what is fascinating about skin and timber? You can tell how artistic I am when I say that.
Skin and timber. Yeah, look, I just love wood. Yeah. I've always been with wood. Like my previous job, I was a deck installer, patio builder. Like I just love wood, I just love wood. But there's certain aspects to timber which we'll probably dive into a little bit later on what makes it so special. But I don't know, man. It's just it's flop mold and a lure is not the same buzz. You haven't handcrafted that lure. You haven't touched it. You haven't painted it. You haven't drilled all the holes in it. You haven't drawn it. You haven't designed it from the ground up. So there is something pretty special about it.
And you know what? Me other little mate Lenny. He talks very similar how you talk. Just then that statement that you made that. He's quite passionate about the things that he makes, just with steel. So, but anyhow, I think it's a common theme that people that are good at making stuff. It's not just because they're making it because they have to.
No,
they're making it because they're passionate about it. They like doing it. And so it just rolls into the work, doesn't it?
100%. And a shout out to all the metal workers out there. At least if you cut it short, you can fucking weld a bit on the end. Can't do that with timber, but no, it is.
You can't use wood glue.
No, it doesn't work. No, you become passionate about it more than anything, and you just love it. Like I just love it, mate. I don't like this last week. Well, actually, the last 2 weeks before the Expo were the busiest of my life as far as lures. Like I didn't even want to think the days I was doing, probably 15-hour minimum days. Yeah. I did ring you up through the day, and or might have been night, I can't remember. And this is obviously when we were trying to figure out when we could do the next podcast, and you were peaking. You were a mess. I just don't like letting people down, and because I'd made so many bodies and I'd gotten so much deep, and I was like, oh my God, I've got 800 lures here. I have to finish them.
Yeah. And prior to that, you basically had a shipment down to Newcastle about that same amount.
So I literally, but there was a lot more work in that because it was all Jew lures, so it was like 5 times the size. But I literally drove that order to Newcastle, stopped at your house on the way home, picked up lure materials from Nella's, come home, and literally Monday started Expo 19 days out.
Yeah. So that's just crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy, man. But you do it because you love it at the end of the day. But there's some long days in it, but that's just all part of it.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I'm curious to know, how do you come up with a design for a new lure? Where do these ideas come from? Is it something where you just go, fuck it, I'm going to think of every species that lives underneath that water and try and emulate something like that? How's it work?
I think for me, I guess you look at a lot of the Japanese lures that have taken the market by storm, and no one really replicates any of that stuff into timber, ever. And that's basically what I did with my jerkbait, and people can say, oh, it looks like this, it looks like a squirrel, it looks like this. Fuck it, I'm sorry, but you can't reinvent the wheel. A jerkbait that needs to catch barra, that swims as tight as it does and backs up as slow as it does, it needs to look like that. It's as simple as that. So I've got a lot of inspiration out of the Japanese. And I've been lucky. I've been in and out of sales, so you can see what's a good seller. Like, I'm not saying you copy a lure. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But you say, hey, a barra jerkbait that dives to 4 foot's a good seller. So, like, let's dive into that market.
Yeah.
That has a lot to do with it. And sometimes I'm just like, oh, fuck, I don't want a top water bastard that does this, and I'll just make it.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So what we've got in front of us here for the Patreon guys, we've got some prototypes, some ideas that come to a bigger fruition of what you're trying to achieve. So which one are we going to pick on here?
Well, basically, just first up, this is just what I want to say that, like, this is... shit never works. Like, it doesn't work all the time. So, like, this is a big prawn that I had for Expo, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, righto.
See you later.
Throw it in the bin.
On the floor.
Now, something like that, because you sell that to a pet store to throw for the dog?
Kind of could. It's got little tentacles off it. But look, this. I'm not going to sit here and dive into why the reasons that wouldn't work. I could get that to work, but I didn't have the time.
Yeah, okay. Righto.
Thin it down, more lead, etc. But the way it was, it didn't work.
Righto.
This guy, a little rat. I did this last year. Like a little pompadour style wings on there. That's going to be a great one.
That was shit too.
On the floor?
Yeah, on the floor, righto.
There wasn't enough body there that put enough lead in it to sit it deep enough to get the wings to paddle.
The wings work. Yeah,
didn't work.
All right, and so all these things just sort of come into your head. Then you just sort of skin them out, get them to where you want to go, and then you go. You might get to a point and just go, fuck, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, you can get anything to fucking work.
Okay, right.
But it's a time thing. And if I wasn't so busy, I'd get it to work. But instead, I just go back to the drawing board, change it.
Yeah, right.
And just make it work. But so this is a perfect example. So this is my little prawn.
Yep.
So
that's what's that, about a 30 mil?
He's 50 mil.
50 mil. With the bib. Yep.
So that's how it started. So that lure ended up being my bass fizzer. So the bib comes out. The bib come out. And then I changed it around, put the fizzer blade, and that was that. So that was the original idea. So then we ended up with this prawn off the back of it.
Yep.
And then we ended up with a finished prawn, a bigger size. So you design one and then you can just work off the back of it, But I saw a hole in the market for prawns. Most prawns are all soft plastic now.
Yep.
And I wanted a little prawn crankbait, which I did. But just because you make the first lure doesn't mean that's the only thing you can do out of that lure. You change it, you make it bigger, you shrink it, you make it smaller.
Yeah.
You can get endless models out of that one shape.
Yeah.
So, like there's another thing there that didn't work, like see you later in the bin.
That looked like some messed up piece of shit.
Yeah,
what was that meant to be?
That was a weight bait rat that I cut the bib in the total wrong spot. And see, this is the thing, like
people... That definitely got hit with a fucking ugly stick.
Yeah, it definitely did. And people make a lure and they're like, oh no, I can't ruin it. You've got to ruin lures. Like, I'll ruin like 15, 20 lures to get it to swim straight. Like this here is another rat. That is the rat body now that is my roof rat wake, which is one of my best sellers, and it's a great fish catcher. I was like, I'll make a crankbait on the floor. But it just didn't work. I couldn't get the bib angle right. It was too much timber. I couldn't get enough lead in it. It's just... If you're a lure maker that doesn't have all this shit on your bench, you're not a real lure maker because you haven't tried enough stuff, you know. That guy there, for instance, he swims fantastic. I just, as you can see, viewers can't probably see that up there, but you can see the little sneaky thing. I've cut a bib and I've bent it under there, and that swims really cool.
Okay.
That's something I'll probably do down the track, but you've really got to just play with it to get it perfect.
Yeah,
There's a lot of effort in to get it to where it is.
Now, one of the things, just after you're just throwing that all the things on the ground there,
I enjoyed that. For our Patreon.
Worried about the greenies out there and all the rest of it. What sort of timber are you using when you're making this stuff?
So look, there's no secret, Jellyton is the #1 lure making timber in Australia. It's a good price. It's very consistent in its properties throughout the length of timber.
Yep.
And it's readily available.
Yeah, right.
They're the three major things I love using. Can't see, but above my head here, I've got some cypress, I've got some silky, I've got some rosewood. There's heaps of shit up there that I just do one-off stuff out of.
Oh, right.
But that's not sustainable.
Yeah, right. And can people just go buy this shit from Bunnings?
No.
Okay, just checking.
No. Look, I'm not going to say where I get it from, but you can, because there's like stacks of guys that get it from there, and it's their business too. But look, any really good timber wholesaler will sell Geoton. Obviously, for the average Joe Blow, I'm just going to reach over here for our Patreon viewers. Just stretch there. So that's sort of that's probably the length that most of our Patreon, like you can see that on Patreon, that's most of the length that the hobbyists would probably use. It's about 500 long, and that's a 40 by 45 piece of Geoton. That's absolutely useless to me.
Righto.
But so like we're buying.
They're good to crack someone over the head with.
Fish dong. That's why they're on the ground there. Like I'm buying 4 metre lengths, 300 by 75s.
Yeah.
So it's a serious.
We can make Yulby sticks.
Yeah, bloody oath.
Yeah, Yulbies.
Yeah. Check out your 2 Pelicans domestic.
Yeah.
But no, look, it's Geoton's by far the best. It's people have said, it's not sustainable and you're killing the forest over there, but mate, they just keep shipping it out, and it's from overseas. So
Yeah, cool. Look, I think you just sort of demonstrate some of the challenges of trying to get everything to look, work, swim, and price it what it needs to be priced at. What are some of the challenges that you have faced in starting this up?
Yeah, probably not the challenges that people think. Like, people probably think the main challenges are trying to get into stores and do that. But for me, I've never, and I can honestly sit here, I've never approached a store to this point. And they've always approached me. And I think that comes to like a sponsorship thing, like, you're a young kid wanting to get sponsored. What do? You just make a good product. And you put it out there and people come to you. So hasn't really been a challenge. It's a challenge now keeping up with the demand. But look, for me, the main challenge I've faced is this shed fucking leaking and killing the shit.
Righto.
Shout out to the legend that built this shed, that built one shed inside another shed. So when it rains, it overflows. Anyway, having a bit of that background, I box gutted and did all this, and it didn't leak. And I had my new computer system set up there, and like some serious coin tied up in stuff. And it was just through this room here behind us here, and had this big hailstorm. Didn't think nothing of it, I know the shed doesn't leak, but what I didn't take into account for that hail that was like a foot deep on the back lawn was going to freeze solid in the box gutter and shoot a waterfall of water through my entire shed.
Wow.
So I walked into the shed the next day, and as you can see here, my shed's actually 2-tiered. And I stepped into another tier without the lights on, and I felt splish splash.
Shit.
And I looked to the left, and the whole computer was drowned. And
oh no! What about was this? Did you?
No. All this was fine. All my machinery was fine.
Do you have a name for this? Can we call it Bachui Chomp?
We call it Chewy Chomp.
Bachui Chomp, I like it. Because it looks like if you put your hand near it, it's going to go Bachui Chomp, and you can have nothing left.
I was actually only saying to Paul the other day, I'm like, have you ever nicked yourself with a cutter or anything? He's like, a couple of times. I was like, I never have. Literally that day, tunk on the end of the fingernail. Look, that's probably been the main challenge of me, and for the people listening, like, just go and buy a new computer. But it's not as simple as that. It's your files, it's your coding, it's the 12 months of work on there. That's a big problem.
And like any machine like this, like you need the software to run it. You need, like you said, all your profiles, all your bits and pieces. You don't just plug it in and it goes.
No, and I've got everything backed up now, like all my files, and you need a good maintenance man. Shout out to Paul Della. But look, I do need to give a shout out to him and Cheryl, because they have really been there for me. Like, I only just rang him up the other day. I had a little minor problem with something else, and like he just, it always helps, like, always willing to help out, but it's more like your friends more than work colleagues, you know what I mean?
Other than the Yulby sticks, and knowing what Paul's made, you think you'll ever branch out into guitars or other things, or you just lure them?
If you've ever heard me play a guitar, probably not, because I sound like a busted ass. Paul Manella can shout out to that and all his neighbours when I used to go around there, and you probably have heard that a few times. But look, I really want to get into the cabinetry side. I'm a cabinet maker by trade.
Sure.
I do want to get back into it, but as you can see from my shed and down in there, I have no fucking space. I've got a table saw in the other shed. I want to get a big wide thickness that does minimum 600. I do want to do that so I can play around slabs, but I just don't have the space. But eventually We'll probably touch on this, but eventually when I get a bigger place and stuff, if that ever happens, I'd love to branch out. Big panel saw, big table saws, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I guess what does make a good lure maker and a good lure? And what's the difference between something like that and something that comes from Japan or gets imported into Australia?
It's a great question. This is going to take some time to answer.
All right, I'll just have a
sip.
Might actually got another can there?
Yeah, we'll dig another can out. And for our new listeners that didn't hear last episode that can't see us over on Patreon, I've got my 7-year-old's Cool Up bag from school with beers in it, nice packed down here in the shed for the win. So what makes a good lure maker? Now, this is a really good question. A good lure maker isn't someone that can hand carve a great lure, someone that can paint well. It's not someone's lure that can catch fish. To be a good lure maker, you need to understand fish.
Yeah.
You need to fish. If you're a lure maker that fishes once a year, you're never going to be that of a lure maker that fishes 3 times a week. And what I mean by that is, like I mentioned in the last episode, earlier on in this episode actually, it's not about saying, hey, this lure here, I can catch brim, bass, whiting, flathead, marlin, jewfish, snapper. It might do, but that isn't designed to catch it. It might catch those fish, but it's not designed to it. So to become a good lure maker, you need to basically know when a fish eats, sleeps, shits, what it eats, where it eats it, why it eats it, at what time of the day it eats it, the season it eats it in. And by understanding all those things, you can create a lure like my barra lure that catches barra flat out. It swims like a barra lure needs to do. They dive to the right depths that they need to do, and they're in the right colours for the right time of year. My dew lure, I've never put so much work into a lure than that dew lure. And it swims like a mullet. It swims the actions like it needs to be. It's tough like it needs to be. And
this looks like a prototype.
That was the original big prototype I've done for Lure Expo. I guess that's pretty a simple one, mate. If you don't fish, you don't understand lures, and that's pretty.
What scares me, I guess, with that comment is that I did watch a movie once, and it was called Freddy Got Fingered. I don't know if you've ever seen
No, I've never seen that.
Okay, probably put this on when the kids are asleep. But anyhow, someone said to him, you got to become one or be one of the animal or whatever. So next minute he's driving down the road, and there's a fucking deer that's been killed, I think a deer or a buck or something like that. And so he gets a knife out, cuts it all up, and gets inside, and he's just walking around. But anyway,
that's more than you bargained for on tonight's episode.
Yeah. And you're glad you picked that up. I totally get what you're saying there, because there's a lot of lures out there that have an action that work, but I guess if you go one step further and tie it into a particular season, a spawning time or something to that effect, it becomes a little bit more special, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. And they're just the things you need to work out. Like, you nailed it with the action thing. Everyone swims a lure and look how lovely and wide that action is. Bass don't like a wide action. They like a tight shimmy. Trying to get a tight shimmy out of a fat crankbait isn't that easy. You go cod and yellowbelly. Well, yellowbelly love that tight shimmy, but cod don't. Cod like that big lazy wobble. The jewfish. So when the mullet are running, the mullet are sitting like a foot under the surface, if not on the surface. So you need to emulate that mullet. But then, given when the mullet aren't running, you need a lure that cranks down hard, you can really get it down and keep it down. You're not going to make 2 different lures. So I've designed my lure that it absolutely does both. I've got a buoyant timber, the hooks are in the right place, the bib's big enough that the buoyancy of the timber fights against the bib, so when you wind really slow it keeps in that top foot, but when you crank that thing down, it'll stay down and you can fish then deep gutters and stuff. So you've got to understand the fish to make a good lure, and what makes a good lure is you have to design a lure for a fish. You can't just say, this lure is going to catch brim, flathead, whiting, bass, redfin, marlin. It just doesn't work. You have to have, that's why in my current stocking stores I stock 22 models into stores. So that's why I've got a jerkbait for barra in 4 depths, 2 different sizes, 4 depths. Jewfish, I've got 3 sizes now, in roughly all about the same depth. Bass, like that's just endless. You know, I've got so many different top waters, but they're always to emulate different things. So I've got fizzes to emulate the cicada bite for like that March, April. Then I've got noisier, bigger stuff for that early on in the season. I've got paddler baits. Like you've really got to design it. You can't just make one lure and say it's for everything. So I think that answers pretty well what makes a good lure and a good lure maker. But what the difference is between Japanese baits and Australian baits, and this is a really big one, is I make a lure fucking tough to handle our fish. And I've got some absolutely dear Japanese friends and involved in the fishing industry pretty heavily over there in Japan. But their largemouth bass don't fight like a bass here or anything like here. So a lot of their cool niche baits over there, like they're mounted with the old Heddon style like screws. There's no split ring or anything. It's just two screws into the timber with a treble. You imagine throwing that in front of a cod. It gets destroyed in 15 seconds. I think the main difference between Aussie-made baits and Japanese baits are we've got big terminal tackle on there. You know, like I'm running.
Sorry, mate.
You're all right. I'm running 3x, 6x trebles. Like I run 3x on all my bass stuff. So if you throw that in front of a barra, it's going to handle it. Where the Japanese just don't handle that. I'm a big believer in when you buy a lure, you shouldn't have to replace the hooks on it. Okay. So I think that's your main difference between your imported baits and your Australian-made baits. They're made tough for our species.
So that's really good insight, and you know you've obviously progressed the business to a particular point. So moving forward, how do you see Jollop progressing into the future?
A good question.
I'll come up with them all.
Look, it's a really tricky one. You know, like this last 12 months, we've surpassed our biggest financial year ever. Like. I'm not talking monetary value.
Can I just to stop there as a side question? We can work it off financial year if you wanted to, but how many lures would you make in a financial year?
So we'll talk financial years. So like this last financial year, I don't keep exactly track of every single lure I make. But working it out off the figures and that, like I probably did about 6,000 lures in a 12-month period. So. And I know how hard I went in that 12-month period. So moving forward, I can't physically see myself making any more lures than I currently am. The next step is obviously employees. That comes with a whole new set of challenges. Which I'm not ready to dive into. So look, probably for the next 3-4 years, we'll just plateau out at this. We'll stick with our 6th. Look, already, what are we? We're 10 days into this year and I've already done 890 something lures. So look, we might smash that this year. But you can't keep up. What I've done in the last 2 weeks, you can't do that every 2 weeks because you'd be dead. Like you just can't do it. Like you do it, you got to have a break. I'm having 2 weeks off, spend some time with the family. But I guess my goal, my dream is to have my own place, like my own shed somewhere. Not necessarily have to have employees, but be financial enough to have a shed, have a little showroom out the front with Jollop, so there's Jollop on hand all the time. Now, I don't mean for people to buy online at us, but when a store rings up, that stock's there. My wife can go and pack that stock and it's sent out that day. Like right now, if you ring up, you've got a 3 to 4, maybe 5, 6 month wait.
Someone's waiting.
But these guys know I'm a family dude. I do my best and I do what I can, you know, and I get you the lures and I get you the lures.
And not trying to sound like Mr. AI or the Terminator. Can the machine, is there machines that are doing a lot more that could sort of fill them voids, or is it just a cost versus craziness sort of summary?
It's a really good question, man. And this is something that grinds my gears and it's pretty close to my heart. Like it's no secret, like the dudes that are pumping out big numbers of lures are using machinery to manufacture their bodies. Other than that one step out of about 80 steps, there is absolutely no machinery that helps. So people think like, oh, your machine bodies, etc. Like it's gonna make the process so much quicker. Like, fractionally. But if you do the amount of sanding, like say those Pokemons, like I spent like 3 days sanding those suckers. Where if they're hand carving that, they might not have necessarily had so much sanding. Look, there's no machinery. People think that you just put a lure in a machine that paints it. No, I'm sorry, but like anyone that sits there and says because you would CNC cut a body, saying that it's not handmade. Like I'm saying hand carved. I'm not saying hand carved. Yeah, it's not hand carved, but it's still a handmade lure. Like my hands touch that like a billion times before it's finished. Like you're drilling holes in it, you're cutting bib stops, you're painting it, you're sealing it, you're sanding it. I think there's so much behind it where people just think you put timber in your machine, you hit that go button, and you go have a latte. Doesn't happen.
So the Batui Chomp machine over there, it doesn't do a hell of a lot other than get the profile as such.
No. And let me tell you, like it sounds all good, well and good, but when that thing fucking breaks down or you snap a cutter, like your hours and like cutters are expensive. Like this stuff's expensive. So look, there's a few of us now doing it this way, and if you want to make a living of it, you can't hand carve lures. And a shout out to the dudes that are sitting there like Clayton. I'm pretty good friends with Clayton. I can call him out, but mate, he'll sit there in his shed and he'll hand carve and he fucking loves it. And if he didn't hand carve, he wouldn't enjoy it. So look, everyone,
each to their own scenario.
Each to their own, you know, and I enjoy the whole of lure making. I don't just get a kick out of hand carving. But that's what people don't understand. When I make a prototype, I still have to fucking hand carve it.
Yeah, that's right. That's
like
right.
I don't just go, there's a Pawnella fucking lure, let's just fucking make that.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just going to program this.
Yeah, it's right. You've still physically got to hand carve your original. So, but that's another kettle of fish.
Now, I guess, you know, what sort of a startup cost for anyone that wanted to sort of fall down this sort of path that you found yourself in?
Look, it's like I'm lucky because I did it at a cheaper time in the economy.
Yeah, sure.
Like, if you wanted to set yourself up now to like the level I'm at, I'm not even going to say how much it'd cost because you wouldn't do it. But like if you just wanted to say, hey, I'm going to start as a hobbyist to build up. If you give yourself say 10 grand. You could get pretty well set up.
And 10 grand means that you can have a Batui Chomp?
No.
Okay. So basically you get all these particular carving things. And
so basically for 10 grand, you're going to want 2 band saws. You're probably going to want a thicknesser. You're going to want a good linisher. And you do get benefits out of buying better stuff. Like I've got 3 band saws just on the other side of that wall. And I use them on a regular basis. So having a couple of band saws, you're going to want to have some good stuff, even just all your good hand tools, a good quality drill, a lightweight drill, because you're drilling all the time, good knives, good tool. Like if you had 10 grand, but it's not even about the tools, Mick. Setting up your shop. Like this room we're sitting in here now was the best part of 5K to soundproof this room. Not even that though, it's more like if you want a workbench, you got to build the workbench, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that. So look, if you had 10 grand, I'm not just saying you have to save it up, but over time, that's probably what it's going to cost you to get into it properly. To be at a point where you can go, I can probably bandsaw cut and lineage to sand. I've got a dipping bench over there, I've got airbrushes, a compressor, like this stuff isn't cheap. Now for a really good compressor, like $800-900, and that's not a really good one, that's just a decent quiet one. So that, you could say do 20 or 30 lures a week at that, you get your money back pretty quick.
And I think, you know, there's probably people out there that probably have some transferable skills, you know, you mentioned airbrushing, you remember like working with Timno, cabinet makers, so on and so on. So, you know, there might be some people that might be out there that have just been sort of sitting on the sideline, but no, it's really good to hear that that's where you got to it.
I just want people to know, though, it's not unreachable. Like, anyone can do this. Like, I've got no background on lure making. I'm not an artist.
Well, it's not something that you go, how you going there, son? Sign up here. Here's your apprenticeship to be a lure maker for 4 years.
Exactly. Get on the fucking tools. You can't go to TAFE and do it. And like with the airbrushing, that's been a big learning curve now. But I believe now, like, just say, for instance, this baby cod swim bait there. That's as good as anything else on the market. And I've got no painting background at all. Just be prepared to spend money. Like, I've never had anyone. Well, I had people recommend, say like Nella recommended a clear coat, but that didn't suit my style. That didn't suit my paint I wanted to use. So be prepared to spend money. Like. the only way you find stuff out is you buy that clear coat, it doesn't work, you tip it out or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's not a cheap thing, but once you're set up, if you enjoy it, you'll stick with it.
Yeah. And that sort of, you probably answered half of my next question about that was, any advice for anyone that does want to have a crack? You know, do you just go out and go hard, or what advice would you give them?
This is a good question. I've had a young fella messaging me on Instagram. I think his name's Corey. Shout out to him. If he's, I think he's called Bent Bates or something like that. And he actually come up to me in the expo.
Yep.
And he's like, "Mate, are you busy?" And I was fucking flat out. I had everywhere.
Yep.
And I was like, "No, mate, it's fine. Let's talk." Like, I'm never going to say I'm too busy for anyone. And he's like, "How do I take it to the next level?"
Yeah.
And mate, that was unreal to sit down and we'll stand up with him and talk him through it. But I think just remember this: if you want to have a crack at it, running a lure business is 50% making a lure and 50% being a businessman.
Yeah.
And you would understand that from your ventures, but. Yeah, making a lure is 50% of the time. Like, the other part, you've got to market your business.
Yeah.
You've got to have a good business plan. You really got to watch what you spend as far as materials. Like, hey,
that's right.
I might drop $4,000 on clear coat, sealer, and primer, but that's cheaper than buying it in 500 ml containers.
That's right.
So,
all the little business enhancements that you've got to do. Obviously, you know, money will get you a long way through the process, but it's that you got to do the time to do the crime.
Yeah.
The time crime does the time, something like that. So you sort of, you know, considering buying in bulk on things, all that kind of stuff. So your bottom line, you know, is a little bit more low, which would give you a little bit more in the back pocket.
And consistency.
Yes.
Like, consistency is
is everything.
Like, don't think after 12 months you're going to be selling to 35 Tackle World stores and 17 BCF, because that's fucking ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
Remember, I've been doing this solid for 9 years, and now we're just sort of getting to the point where, you know, people sit up and notice you, and we're getting to where we are. But I will say this. This is, if you can take a quote of the day. We might even clip this up. This might be a good little one for Insta. But talking about one word of advice, just remember this to all the people out, and this isn't just to do with lure making, this is in general, and this is my advice. This is, no one's ever told me this. I've designed this myself.
Yeah, righto.
So just remember...
Everyone got a pen and paper.
Yeah, jot this down. Just remember that if you make a lure or whatever you're doing and it doesn't work, you haven't failed. You only came second.
Yep.
Just remember that. Like, you didn't fail, but the fish beat you or whatever, it didn't work, it was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
You didn't come last, you'd only come second. Winning was beating the fish, making a great lure.
Yeah.
So it's not failing, it's only coming second. I've come second plenty of times, so it doesn't really matter. I've lost $60,000 by 10 grand to come second. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a good one, a valuable one to remember is... Just because it doesn't work the first time, go back to the drawing board, be consistent, and things will happen.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one, if I'm going to pull a quote out of my bum, that I've always sort of lived by this, and, you know, I can imagine anyone sort of starting up and trying to get to a point, and then they're like, oh, you know, I've done this, I've done that, but this guy over here, you know, he's done this and done all that. And I think... You know, comparison is the thief of joy, right?
100%.
If you're going to be out there going, oh, you know, Job's here, but I'm here, and you're worried about how am I going to get to that point, you'll have no joy in what you're doing.
And we've all been guilty of that. I'll put my hand up and say that, like, oh, I wish I was like him, I wish I was like that. And then when you finally get there, you're like, huh.
Yeah. So
what was all that hassle about?
That's exactly right. So... anyone that's starting up anything, try not to ever compare or try to be or fit in someone else's shoes.
It's something I'd love to do down the track. You know, I'm not saying I'm the fucking best small business startup person in the world, but I think there's definitely an avenue there to create some content, maybe over on our Patreon, you know, like how to get started into a small business, all those things, because... At the end of the day, we're not just talking about lure making. We're talking about anything in general. You're in an apparel business, you want to start up a lawn mowing business or whatever you want to do. There's little tricks and tips to help you out.
Yeah. And look, we've probably got a few guys that could probably help us out on that journey as well. So anyhow, but look, I think we might wrap it up there.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I think if we could sit here for another 3 or 5 hours. I guess my main message is if you don't enjoy it, don't do it.
Yes.
Like if I had a bloke say to me,
"That's me. I don't think I can enjoy doing it." But but in jokes aside, what you've shown here tonight, talking about the process of it. There's so much more than skin and timber, yeah?
Yeah, man. Like, and I fucking grinds my gears, and I won't call them out who said this, but there was a podcast a little while back. I think I mentioned it to you, maybe, and they're like, if you use machinery, you're just a lure painter, and that fucking grinds my gears because I know the effort that I sit in this shed and I put into these pieces of art, I guess some people would say, but I just think it's a fishing lure. It's definitely not.
Well, it's defined art by the fact that people are collecting them to put in the pool room, aren't they?
I think, I guess too, like a lot of my fishing lures, just say for instance this guy here.
Yeah.
That's 135 mil cod lure, right?
Yep.
Painted bib, aluminium bib, fair bit of work in that.
I love that colour too, just by the way.
Great colour.
Yeah.
That's called the Mark Lille Special.
Yeah.
That colour caught the first fish on that lure, which was a 1.5 cod.
Wow.
But that lure there, like it's a cool lure.
Yeah.
And the amount of effort that goes in is $40.
Yeah.
Like retail, so, yeah.
And I know we're wrapping it up, but it brought a question to my head. You say that lure's $40. How much time do you spend on that?
That's a good question. Like, I never just, you don't wait one at a time, but
yes,
I'm just going to break this down. So the last lot of Jew lures I did was about 800 lures.
Yeah.
So I worked out there was about 16 weeks work in that.
Yeah.
So if you broke it down just to say 38-hour week, which it's not, but let's just for argument's sake say 38 hours a week.
Make it 40 if I make it easy for you.
Make it 40.
Yep.
I think it worked out. I'm just going to quickly do the math here. So I think it was like an hour a lure or something like that.
Okay.
So what have we got?
which isn't too bad.
No, so 16 times 40, so we get 640 hours. Yep. Divide that by 800. Mm-hmm. No, that's not right. We got 800.
Yep.
All the mathematicians yelling at us here. 640. Yeah, so an hour and 20 basically a lure, which is a bit of an overestimate. But you've got to remember, like say when you put your clear on, you can't do anything for a day.
That's right,
so
and all the transition pieces.
It's all those transition times. So like an hour of lure probably doesn't take that, but if you take drying times and stuff and you count, but
Righto, I think we might wrap it up there. Like I said, we're going to drop a poll to see, whether some of these pelicans out there would give lure making a go. And
I want to hear from you if you're one of my followers. If you're a Jollop fan, you're over here on the Jollop page. Let me know what your favourite lure is over on our Facebook page. Just leave it. Just drop us a comment, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Let us know what your favourite Jollop lure is, or maybe the biggest fish you've caught on a Jollop lure. That'd be bloody unreal. But to finish off our show. We better have a yarn. We better have a yarn. The last episode didn't have any, but we were getting full into this mode. But what we're going to do is we're going to just quickly hook up our headphones here and we're going to listen to this yarn. Let's hit it.
Hello, you pelicans. The Yamby Yabby here. Coasters, posters, and giving away toasters. It's been raining down here more than old Queen Lizzie lately. So I've got 2 questions for you Muppets. One, we've had the best year for crabs ever, and there's a word on the street that you 2 blokes are the king of gout. So I want to know what is the best remedy or best tablet for gout in your honest and experienced positions. And 2, despite you blokes not really targeting real fish like flathead, what's your go-to colour in the dirty water? That's Yamby Yabby,
Now, before we dive into that, I just must say, guys, this is the shit we want to hear from you. Like, that is a fucking crapper. Was it? That's a good one. Killing toasters and posters. I don't even, that was fucking great. But it just quickly before we dive into that, it is just send that yarn in, just exactly like that to the 2pelicans at gmail.com. But I I don't know if we are. If I keep up this sugarcane champagne, I might have a gout problem. But
I'll put my hand up. I definitely, every now and again, have gout medication because I love tomatoes. So, but
and this is the hard-hitting podcast we are here. We're telling you about gout.
Yeah. Now, I think there's two sorts. Leg out is a bit of it's a bit of a marathon drug, and then there's another one, might be pro gout or something like that, where it's just to knock the pain out straight away. So I hope there's no doctors listening, but I take both, especially when it's bad. So
from someone that's never had gout,
yep,
I just fucking hook into the crabs and smash the red wine and it's fucking deal with it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, the biggest thing is don't give up drinking cans.
Just don't give up.
Just don't give up.
Mate, if they said to me, if you're going to have gout or just drink rum cans, I might, sorry, but we're sticking with, fuck, have we got a microphone on here? Oh, yeah?
Yep, no, I'm good. I got a bit on.
Yeah, just talking about rum cans, I've lost the microphone. Yeah. But lure colour, that's a really solid question.
Yeah, I've got some ideas on this, but I'll let you go first, being the lure maker and all.
Yeah, so basically the dirtier the water, the darker the colour. It's as simple as that. It doesn't make any sense. People are like, oh, it's dirty, let's tie on fluoro yellow.
Yeah.
So the whole thing behind the dirty thing is it's silhouettes. Like a dark night, you use a dark lure. So when the fish are looking up at a top water that's black, black on black, it stands out like dog's nuts. So Yamba Yabby, if you're wanting to catch a few flatties, I'd be tying on like a motor oil 3-inch Daiwa grub or a paddle tail, something like that, or like the bloodwormy colour, an oil flash, something that real dark sort of colours.
I'm just going to go against the grain there a little bit, and only might be just a bit of luck, but I have spent a lot of time fishing dirty water on the Clarence quite often. And one thing that I do like to use, I like the dark colours, I really do. But I like just a strip of white. Yeah,
straight white's good too,
just a strip of white through the bottom. Some of the, I think some of the Jackal stuff is really spot on for that sort of stuff, some of them colours. But I do love a strip of white. Gino Customs, Gino, how you going? He painted up a whole heap. It was sort of like a porcelain white for me years ago. And unfortunately, I have no more that are like that. But they killed. They did.
So if you're in the salt water, stick to them sort of black and golds. Your pumpkin seedy, bloodworms, any of that stuff. But if you're a basso and you're in the dirty water, your blacks, your purples, like your brown sujis, your brown tigers, anything like that, I think you'll do pretty good. So
like that purple's just sexy.
That purple right there for our Patreon viewers, that slays anything in the dirty water. But really big shout out there. Oh, nearly lost him. Big shout out there to the Yamba Yabby.
Yamba Yabby, I think, he's definitely a
we might need to reach out to the Yamba Yabby and get him on.
I don't know. He's a bit of a flog.
I don't know. I reckon. Moving forward, we're going to, like our first 2 episodes, we're going to have a bit of a blowout every now and then. But I guess it's a good little quick point to bring it up. We're actually going to let everyone know probably next time we're going to do that, Mick.
Yeah.
Did I start with?
Hang on. Oh, sorry. I just went to China and back. What was that?
So next time we're going to have a bit of a blowout. We're going to go and film a few eps at the shout out to our sponsors, the Brushy Hotel.
Yeah.
We're probably going to let all the legends know when we're going to be there, when we're filming. So afterwards we can have a beer.
I think that's a really good idea.
Come and have a yarn, and if you don't want to send your voice recording in, we'll record it on the spot. Get you on live. So So we definitely want to interact with you guys. Like, we love having a tin.
100%.
That's fucking no secret. We love a tin.
Yep.
And next time we're going to probably get down there early, film 2 or 3 episodes, and we might even throw a few bucks on the bar, have a few beers, and mingle with you.
If it is the Yamba Yabby, we might not be able to give him a mic. We'd have to put it on his shirt because he's got no arms. He looks a bit like T-Rex.
T-Rex. I don't know. I like the Yamba Yabby. He's got a bit of pizzazz about him. I heard he's good with the Yamaha.
Yeah. No, he's definitely the champion there. So, good man, Yamba Yabby. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and look, guys, we're going to start to wrap this thing up. But look, just please don't forget, it's the 2pelicans@gmail.com, and that is the number 2. not spelt out too. Yes, Choof Pelicans. Look, we want to interact with you guys, and like I said, just before next time we do something big where we go to the pub at the Brushy, we're going to get everyone involved.
Yeah.
If you can't be there all afternoon, rock up at 5 o'clock when we finish filming, have a beer.
Yeah, sure.
Tell us your fuck ups, tell us your yarns.
Yeah.
If not, email it through. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yep.
Mick, what are we gonna? Anything to finish on?
I'm just going to finish on something that I could have brought up at the start, but we're just so in depth with talking about the lure stuff.
How good Joel Lure.
Big shout out to I'm starting a cult here, Disco Dave and the BC crew. Just good blokes, but probably only a few geniuses that I know that went to a dam for the whole weekend and didn't catch a fish. But they had a really, really good time doing it. You wouldn't read about it.
They wouldn't read about it, yeah. A campfire, beer and yarns. Was the metal bender there?
No, the metal bender wasn't there. I hope he's listening to this podcast. He actually come up today in conversation because I also spoke to a current employee that he works with but in another workshop and asked how the metal bender was, but I don't know if a rumour he might have had a little car accident.
Oh, so if for those that don't know, metal bender is some bloke that I've never met before. I nicknamed the metal bender. If the metal bender's listening, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. He knows fuck all about fishing.
Yeah. And P.S. that's not Lenny. That's another dude. I can imagine Lenny going, "What the fuck are you going on about?" But no, that's someone else.
And I think moving forward too, it'd be good to interact some of our mates with our listeners, so they know who Lenny is, they know who Disco Dave is, they know who the Ambi Yabby is. You know,
well, some of them will be a bit gun shy. But others, maybe like the Ambi Yabby, you probably wouldn't be able to keep them away.
Mate, if you said there's a free sausage sizzle, the Ambi Yabby will be there every fucking weekend. Mm-hmm. He loves a sausage or two, and once you see the unit, you'll understand why he loves a sausage or two. But well, let's wrap this up. We're gibbering on. We're having a few tins.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks for all the support.
Yes.
Don't forget Spotify, Two Pelicans Podcast, over on Patreon, $3. That's not even a tin of beer.
Yep.
Get about it. Moving forward, I know we've spoken about it, but we are going to have some exclusive content, YouTube content, especially with Mick's boat build. Mick doesn't know this, but when he goes to pick it up, I might even go for a drive and I might document.
You might not come back.
I might not come back, but I'll film it. We might go down and film it and take the boat for a run and get a bit of footage for it. So all that stuff will be exclusive to the old Patreon.
Yeah, and look, and just pre-warning, if you do come, the Judy's coming as well.
The who?
The Judy.
What's the Judy?
The Judy. Oh, he's a dude. You'll know him.
He's not the metal bender.
No. The Judy's coming apparently. So.
Right. I'll sit in the back and sink tins the whole way to Victoria.
Yeah. No, sounds good.
Well, guys, this has been a cracking episode. We're gibbering on, so let's get out of here. I'm Joey.
I'm Mick.
And we're the Two Pelicans. You.